I'm up here in beautiful Stockton with Chris Crossan, the Stockton Strangler. Chris is a Jiu Jitsu black belt underneath Eric Paulson. He's also an avid catch wrestler, probably one of the best known catch wrestlers we've got in the country. We've just done some amazing training on the mats here, and today Chris is going to tell us about catch wrestling and his story. Hello, Chris.
How are you doing?
I'm very good, mate.
Nice to have you here again.
Thank you, mate. So I think a lot of people don't even know what catch wrestling is in this world of Jiu Jitsu, like the podcast you sent to me the other day.
Yeah.
What is catch wrestling?
It's the violent art. It's Jiu Jitsu for men. Jiu Jitsu on steroids. All jokes aside, catch wrestling is, it hails from England. It's no holds barred. Or any submission that you want, you win by a pin or a submission. And obviously, a lot of people in the know that the Gracie family were actually catch wrestling promoters back in the day in Brazil, and that's when Maeda went out there as a judoka who was also a catch wrestler and started teaching the Gracie family. That's where the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu sprang from, so it's a precursor for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's a precursor for modern MMA, it's also a precursor for pro wrestling like WWE, what you see today, because obviously a lot of matches started to become works where people had, let like you say, we're wrestling here, you let me win, we go down south, I'd let you win, blah, 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 we'd be betting on one another, all types of skullduggery would be going on. That turned into where you see today, just total predetermined, sports entertainment. And it's kind of what's happening now with boxing. When you look at these Paul brothers, what's going on? Mm-hmm. Or you're like, is this real or isn't it real?
Or what we saw last night.
Yeah, a lot of skullduggery. And that's kind of sad. But then at the same time, that kind of kept catch alive because a lot of the submissions were still getting used. And back in the day in the pro wrestling, whoever was the roughest man carried the belt. So say somebody wanted to be the champion, they'd have to beat the best man in the gym behind closed doors, and that's how they settled things. And
2,000 then people.
Yeah, guys, and there was an air of legitimacy to it. Even when Hulk Hogan wanted to become a pro wrestler, he went out to train with a top Japanese guy who was in America, and they just beat him up and they broke his legs. They got him in the move where they get hold of your toe and put the elbow in here. So it's a brutal technique, and it popped the bone out of his leg, and that's because they want to protect the business. They didn't want anybody involved. And then he went back and he kept on training for like 2 years. It was 2 years until he realized it was a work, and they started teaching him how to work the matches and whatnot. So even back then, they were still protecting the business, where now everybody kind of knows that that's a work, that's theatre. And then when they think of wrestling, a lot of the time they think about NCAA with the E-defenders on, or Olympic freestyle wrestling, and both of those come from catch. When wrestling was first in the Olympics, it was the 04 or 08 Olympics, it was freestyle was known as amateur catch as catch can. And also the folk style that you see in America, that's another amateur version of catch as catch can. And when you look at the UFC now, statistics show that wrestling is the most dominant of all the martial arts in the UFC. Wrestling, Jiu-Jitsu is obviously super popular, it's being marketed well. And when I look at these competitions, when a lot of these youngsters and stuff, they're really skilled, but I've noticed that they're all from well-off families. They've all got a few quid. It's £50 to enter these competitions. They have to get there. And, I often wonder what it'd be like if we could get in these estates around here. Tough kids who haven't got nothing. They've never seen £50 before. Tough, fighting every day. How good could they be? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for me, catch wrestling is for those kids. Catch wrestling is a working class sport. It's for the people from the estates, rough and ready people who just want to get in the ring, get on the mat, shake hands and get to it. They don't need no fancy belts, titles, stripes, pats on the heads, lollipops, whatever it is to do. They just want to get on there, shake hands and get stuck in, have a good old wrestle. And for me, that's what I love about catch wrestling. For me, being a catch wrestler means much more than having a black belt or anything. I really, I do believe in the sport. I'm a huge fan of the sport. It's tough, it's hard work. You learn a lot about yourself by doing catch wrestling. Like, I know in Jiu-Jitsu, it's like, oh, he's a higher belt, don't try to submit him and all this. Hey, move there, higher belt. There's none of that shit in catch wrestling. It's old fashioned, it's just you shake hands, you get on the mat, you respect somebody as soon as they come on, and there's none of these age divisions and belt divisions. You get on there, if you want to compete, you see who you get. I've competed against a host of like British champions, American champions, world champions, and yeah, that's what you want. You want to get out there and test yourself against the very best. That's what I want anyway.
How did you find catch wrestling? What was your journey like?
I think catch wrestling found me, to be honest. I remember it was about 2001, 2002. I was working as a doorman. There's a lad that was teaching me grappling. Actually got into a fight with a wrestler. And I had to go and have another fight with the wrestler because he took me down. So I went to a guy who ran all the doors around here. I learned to sprawl and the guillotine, went back. We had the fight on the Thursday night outside, and early hours of Friday morning. And then we had another fight on the Monday in the car park around the back of Natural Progression Gym down there, weightlifting gym. He wasn't just any wrestler, he was a very good wrestler. We became friends actually after fighting. We started training together, and he became Cage Rage and Cage Warriors champion. Actually, after my first trip to Brazil, which was 2003, I came back and everything I'd learned, I'd show him and we practice it. And he beat the guy who was Jiu Jitsu black belt world champion, Roberto Atala. He beat him in a no-gi match. So he was very, very good, a physical specimen. And yes, that's what got me really into grappling. I was just doing bits and bobs. But actual catch wrestling, I was working on the door because Marty got shot, my coach got shot. So he used to coach us, so I sort of took over our little group. It wasn't an official class or anything. Marty had a gym just at the other end of the town. It was in a builder's yard, no toilets, no nothing like that. You went up these stairs, it was matted, a matted off area, it had bags. Yeah, it was sort of like stepping into a cage, but it was all matted, really good it was. And this lad came in and was training with us. He came in one day and he had a black eye, and I said, "What's happened?" He said, "Oh, I wasn't going to tell you. I've been training somewhere else." And it was back in the days of the Yellow Pages, and he just looked in, it said John Calvert Extreme Fighting, and he went training with him, and he ended up getting a few knocks sparring. So I said, "Can you take me?" He's like, "Yeah, definitely." So I started taking pride into John. He was really good. He taught a mixture of things. He was a black belt, an old school karate black belt. He was an ex-para. Good boxer. And when he did P Company, I'd heard stories that he was wiping people out in P Company, so he had to spar with all the PTIs. He was a tough man. And he'd show us what he called illegal old wrestling holds, and unbeknown to me, that was catch wrestling, lots of neck cranks, face bars and stuff like that. And as soon as he said illegal, I was like, wow, this must be good. And I absolutely loved it, so I started getting right into that. And then 2003, I was doing limited rules bouts and KSBO and stuff like that, what would be classed as MMA now, amateur MMA. And then I went off to Brazil, 2003, started training Gracie Barra, the original Gracie Barra Academy, 2003, 4 and 5, I'd be back and forth. But in 2004 or 5 there was a big show in Sheffield, Cage Warriors, and I had a couple of lads on. Steve Dawson was fighting Jason Ball, and Jason was also a friend of mine. And the main event was Michael Bisping versus I forget, he was a guy, Dave Radford, a guy who boxed Roberto Duran. It was a big deal back then. Bisping was the up and coming fighter, not about a year probably before he went in the Ultimate Fighter. And it was in the ice skating place over in Sheffield. And Mick Shaw, who I knew from training at Gracie Bar Doncaster, and what a club that was, Gracie Bar Doncaster, that was the best club in the country back in the day. Neil Owen, Neil White, Ben Poppleton, Mick Shaw, Charlie Martin, all black belts now. They were really big on the competitive scene, and Ben and Neil were back and forwards to Brazil. Ben was staying in Brazil a lot. And lost my chain. Oh yeah, Mick Shaw. So Mick Shaw's there that day, and he invites me to join the JKDG Kundo Grappling Association instructor program under Sifa Larry Hartel, who was still alive at the time. Obviously Sifa Larry was, a big deal, and I was a huge fan of martial arts, Bruce Lee. Anyway, he was a regional student of Bruce Lee. He was Mr. T's bodyguard. He was the strength and conditioning coach for the Dallas Cowboys. He was a really tough street fighter. They made a film based on him with Patrick Swayze, the original Roadhouse.
Oh, yeah.
They say they based that character on Sifa Larry. So I was like, yeah, definitely. And I went there, and Mick started showing us all the mixture of different arts. He called Sambo Sombo, because Sambo was a derogatory, a racist slur or something in America back in the day. But obviously it's just an acronym for self-defense without weapons in Russian. So he called it Sombo, and he had a Sambo jacket where it's slightly different with the handles on. So he was my entry into Sambo also. And then he's showing me techniques, calling it catch wrestling. I thought, this is the illegal stuff. It's illegal old wrestling techniques. That's the name that I had for it. So he starts teaching me this as well. We were doing a lot of boxing, dirty boxing, Filipino, dumog, some of the Filipino grappling, and just getting right into it. We're doing the stick, the knife, a bit of everything. Kept on training. It would have been, I forget what time, maybe 2006 or 7. I was competing pro MMA at this time. So yeah, 2006 or 7. I was working on I had a lot of security, doors and stuff. I had my own company at this point. I had doors in all different towns and cities. And I had a little touch where I worked in a place in Darlington called Hogan's. It was 95% all travellers that went in there. And it was right by the train station, so I didn't even used to wear a uniform. I just do 4 hours on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I just go in there and sit down and I sit around the lads, and to be honest, it was the easiest place to work, because if there was any trouble, I'd go outside and have a fight and go back in. It was that type of place. Whereas if you'd had people in uniforms, I think it would have caused a little bit of conflict. So I got 2 people's wages, so I loved it. So I'd be getting paid 2 people's wages for one. Sometimes I'd have to referee fights outside and whatnot. And at this time, 2 travelling lads, they'd say, oh, these 2 lads want to train with you, travellers. And I never heard of these lads. And I knew like a lot of people in that community, but they'd travelled from elsewhere. Then anyway, one of them starts coming in the pub, and I didn't know who he was. Bit by bit, we chatted, asked a little bit about grappling. I didn't know who he was. And then I saw his brother maybe he's 5 weeks later, and cauliflower ears like a pure tank. I thought, this is him. I said, "These are these brothers," and he was laughing. What do you mean? What do you mean? And he said, "Yeah, we want to train with you." And so I had a gym in Downton at the time with Matt Howard, he was doing really good with MMA. I think he went 9-0, something like that. And he had to stop, things happened in his life and whatnot. But these men come into the gym, they walked in, we had a class going, so I was like a purple belt in Jiu Jitsu at the time, like I'd won like MMA fights and whatnot. I thought I was doing all right, won a couple of Europeans, like white and blue in Jiu Jitsu, competing in Brazil, winning medals. I thought, I thought I could grapple a bit. Anyway, these lads come on, I'd never felt anything like it, pure catch wrestlers, doing all these techniques, big slams, takedowns, just pure pressure, felt like the world was on top of you. I'd say, "Hey, what's this that you're doing? What's this submission?" And they'd laugh and say, "It's just wrestling." I say, "What do you mean? What is it?" They say, "It's just wrestling." Then over time, just train. They helped me massively. And at this point, I was doing a lot of sparring, for MMA with, Big Neil Wayne over at Doncaster. My friend Wayne, he was training for a fight in the UFC. He come out of prison, Wayne, and I think within 18 months, he had 6 MMA fights and won them all in round 1, ended up in the UFC in a short space of time. Big Buzz Berry from up this way. Buzz would be in the sessions. He was training to fight Ken Shamrock in cage rage. He made short work of Ken Shamrock. There was a lad who was he'd won the ABAs, Northern Area or Yorkshire ABAs. A big rough lad, really good hands and good grappling. And Neil Owen, who was the man in Doncaster. He was like ex-professional rugby league player. Who, when he was doing his rehab in a gym called Bodies, he's seen people doing jiu-jitsu. He was rehabbing a rugby injury. He started doing it. He never went back. He gave up a professional rugby career and just fell in love with jiu-jitsu and started doing jiu-jitsu. So when they were helping me with this catch wrestling, I started getting a lot harder. It was a lot harder for people to take me down. I started to become better all round. But then fast forward to like 2010, I think it would have been, or 11, we got the great Billy Robinson, God rest his soul, to come over here and teach a seminar. 2011 it was, in fact. And I told him, because we picked him up from Manchester, and I started telling him about the 2 lads, the 2 brothers, the travelling lads. And I said, they say it's just wrestling. He said to me, if they're trained by old timers, to them it is just wrestling. He said, it wasn't the thing. We didn't call it catch wrestling. It's catch as catch can. It's just like, that's what it was. It's wrestling. He said, catch wrestling, it is just wrestling. Wrestling has submissions. And when you think about it, wrestling without submissions is quite a new thing. It started because getting catch into the Olympics, didn't it? Like, it's wrestling always had submissions. If you look in all these caves where there's all these pictures, photos documenting the people on the walls, they've got people in locks that you'd call a kimura if you're a jiu-jitsu guy, umoplata, which would be like a double wrist lock, or a koi lock if you're a catch wrestler, or udigarami if you're a judo guy. I think that wrestling is as old as mankind himself. If you look in the Bible, the first book of the Bible, the book of Genesis, what happens when God incarnate comes down to heaven? He doesn't have a football match or a boxing match, definitely doesn't pull guard and do jiu-jitsu. He wrestles with Jacob, and Jacob wrestles until the middle of the night, until daybreak. And at the end he says to him, what's your name? He says, Jacob. He says, no, your name is Israel. Wrestled with God and won. Boom. And then that was that. So in the first book of the Bible there's a wrestling match. So wrestling's important. And for me, when I'm speaking about wrestling, grappling, I don't just mean catch, freestyle, sumo, sambo. I mean jiu-jitsu, judo. It's wrestling. It's for me, it doesn't matter whether you're wearing an old outfit from Japan in the early 1900s, which we wear when we do jiu-jitsu. We wear clothes from Japan like 200 years ago, which is kind of strange. We look at them, we grab each other by it, and that's just what it is. That's what we do. That's okay. That's just a form of wrestling to me. It's all wrestling, but then each system has its own traditions. Each system has its own rule set, and the rule set determines everything. As we were chatting about yesterday, for me, I believe, this is my own personal preference, I believe that grappling needs either strikes, strike. I don't just mean pin, I mean strikes, like as if for real, or it needs a pin, or else people are just going to be sitting on the floor and doing things which is not combative. For me, it's like, it's martial arts. The art's great, but we have to have the martial. That's what we're doing, you know, or else it's going to end up like what Aikido became, you know, what Aikido always was, maybe. Like, it's, you know, it's not about collecting techniques. For me, I want to go deeper rather than wider.
I like that you said that. You said that in one of your most recent videos, and it's really good to nail in on things rather than just spread.
That's the way for me. Look at the greatest jiu-jitsu guy of all time, in my opinion, for sport jiu-jitsu, Roger Gracie. I remember being lucky enough to be around him in Brazil and attend his seminars with his father, Master Mauricio, and even getting a roll with him when I'm a white belt, blue belt. You've never felt pressure like that, crazy pressure. Good, solid, and I wouldn't even call it basics, because the basics are the advanced fundamentals. No, this is what we need. Look at boxing. Usyk won last night with a jab. So the jab, and it's all about the jab and the cross, and same for grappling. You need those strong fundamentals, you know, it's everything.
Yeah, it's a big, our coach, he's trained Podger a lot, and that's one of the key things he says, it's just, you cannot get, because he's so good at the basics, there's no point in having anything flashy with him, because you're never going to get there.
Yeah, Roger Gracie, Josh Barnett, the two men where I just felt like, wow, you know, as if the world's on top of me when I've been training with them,
So you've been around jiu-jitsu for forever and a day.
Long time,
and it's become very different now to even just watching for back.
People didn't used to know what it was. Like you're saying, what's catch wrestling? People used to say to me, what's jiu-jitsu?
What are the biggest changes you think you've seen in the 25 odd years you've been practicing?
What, you know, in Brazil it was always a posh kid sport. These guys were posh. You know, these were like very high up the social stratum and whatnot. The luta libre guys were the guys without the suit. And jiu-jitsu no gi, we only did on the Friday in Brazil. Senkemono was probably the first thing when I said, what's that? Senkemono no gi. So, that's Friday. And you know, sexta-feira, Senkemono. That was no gi on Friday. We did it once a week. And, you know, for me, there's no such thing as no gi jiu-jitsu, because once you take that gi off, for me, it's just submission grappling. It's just submission grappling. I remember once, you know, I know to digress a little bit, I was in Brazil, it would be 2004, I think it was, and a luta libre team had split up, and they'd all joined Gracie Barra and Gordo, great jiu-jitsu guy, world champion. To get a lot of privates off Gordo. He helped me massively. He was the coach, and he also had a Cuban freestyle wrestling coach. So he had a French boxing coach in there, and like Babalu and all those guys jumped ship to Gracie Barra. But I remember one time, you know, a group of Polish guys came over, big, strong, rough lads, you know, wrestlers, and they were going through. I know you're not meant to talk about what happens in gyms and all that, but, you know, I'm breaking that rule, but let's just say they were doing extremely well. And I'd be privy to conversations when, like, the Brazilians, like, what are we going to do? They're just, like, totally out of the depth. Why? Because there's no gi on, and these men, stronger, bigger, they didn't care what belt someone had. They probably didn't even know what that meant. And there was, you know, obviously they were doing really, really well. And I was thinking, wrestling's good. You know, I remember that I'd always it's like wrestling was always dragging me back. But then they'd be saying to me, oh no, you got to get your black belt in the gi. It's so important. It'll make you a better grappler and all this and that. And I don't know if that is true or not, whether it will or not. I'm not sure. I think if you can escape when you're in the gi, I think you can escape when you've not got the gi. I think because there's so many handles, I think obviously there are some benefits, and for self-defense, I think it's good to be able to get hold of somebody and throw them. And I love strangles when I'm in the gi. My game's so different to when I'm not in the gi. But, you know, when it comes to me thinking of now about how I'm training my own children and my students, they have no care for the gi. I don't want to teach them how to be good in the gi. I think there's valuable time that can be used doing other things. Although when we do the gi, it's sambo because of the rule set. It's more dynamic. It's got more of a martial element. And let's look at the famous Gracie, Holds Gracie, God rest his soul. What was he doing? Going out and training sambo, competing sambo with Carlinhos, Hickson, Hoyce, Hoyler. They're all going out competing sambo and freestyle. Higan Machado, the Gracie's cousin, Master Higan, who is my coach, Sensei Paulson, Jiu-Jitsu coach, he went out and won the World Sambo Championships twice. So, you know, Jiu-Jitsu, as we see it now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu became so good, I believe, because it was a mate that were getting catch wrestling, and they did Sambo, obviously original Kodokan Judo, Sambo, wrestling, and getting out there and testing it, you know, and I think that's what made it so good. I think now a lot of it is so technical and fancy and whatnot. I think they're kind of straying away from the actual combative element.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my opinion, you know.
Why do you think, I couldn't agree more, why do you think that with all those influences coming in, they really should have made it a unbeatable striking and all elements involved, wrestling, throwing, art, and now it seems to have condensed down to a guard pulling, scooting sport that we see now?
I think money,
stalling for advantages and all that sort of stuff.
People love the stripes, the belts, and all this. And if you want a busy class, make it easy. I think that America kind of got a hold of it. I remember being out in Brazil, and the guy, Papa John, Major John Gorman, he was like saying, we're going to take Jiu-Jitsu to America, the Mundials, World Championships are going to be in the States. I thought, John's out of his mind. He was like a lovely guy, ex-Vietnam vet. Someone said he won a Purple Heart for bravery. He was a smart guy. Obviously, he was a major in the military. He was close to Carlos when he was going off. He was competing in like the Masters. He was not getting many matches. He was an old dude, you know, and everything he said, he did. He's the one who took, now Gracie Barra's main HQ is in America. I think they have over 500 schools around the world. I think he's a big part of that. He's some sort of, he's in with the business. And obviously the IBJJ,
IBJJ, yeah.
Obviously the owner of that is the owner of Gracie Barra. It's so that's Jiu-Jitsu, you know, and there's also many factions amongst that family, and it's, I don't know, it's big business, isn't it? Big business, you know.
It's difficult to accredit a sport when you have every World Championships, there's 500 new World Champions.
And they did take it there, didn't they? They took it to America, because I remember John saying, I was at the Mundials, he said a pigeon took a shit on the mat in the final. Because it's at the Tijuca Tennis Club, and it was like that, you know. But yeah, they made it big business, and sometimes when money's involved, things can be weakened. But then when you look at wrestling, boxing, sports like that, you know, in the States where it's a different kind of kid. The favelas in Brazil, a lot of those kids from the favela end up getting like scholarships to train. I know they used to, and you can get some good kids. I just think that they say Jiu-Jitsu is for everybody, but it's not. Jiu-Jitsu is for people that can afford it. It's expensive. It's an expensive sport, you know. It really is. And I think that people have became extremely wealthy because of it, which is good. Mm-hmm. But for me, my favourite Gracie will be like Renzo Gracie, you know. Master Renzo was what a man, and look at what he's did. All the best jiu-jitsu comes from him, because obviously he was a big part of Hodger will be out there getting coached, and then we look Gordon Ryan, all right, those guys also have done the hardest, but it's Renzo Gracie jiu-jitsu. And I know they speak about the enlisted going over there and doing some leg locks and saying why ignore half of the body. Long before that, Renzo Gracie's winning Vale Tudo fights with leg locks. Then knew about leg locks, guaranteed, you know. But things like Jiu-Jitsu folklore, whatever, things are said. But saying that, I remember watching the Joe Rogan Experience and Rickson Gracie, the legend. You know, he said that his first introduction to leg locks was when my coach Eric Paulson gave him a VHS, a leg lock VHS. So it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things now in Jiu-Jitsu, especially now coming from that Danaher side. I'm seeing things, and this is what, you know, it's Eric Paulson on DVDs teaching this 20 years ago, or VHS, like the Mother's Milk. There's some big guys doing everybody with that, and it's just, they call it Jiu-Jitsu. It's suddenly become Jiu-Jitsu. I know they've been teaching Wade Shalley's system about pinning. Wade Shalley's has won over 1,000 matches by pin, top wrestling coach. We've had a chance to learn from him when Jake Shannon created some workshops with both him and Josh Barnett. And now they're calling it the Jiu-Jitsu, some pinning principle, but it's all this stuff. So it's like, there's no plagiarism in combat sport, is there? But you can, I think there's common decency in life, you know, so we want that. We want the BJ fanatics. It's how it's hard. It's like, again, money. And I just think it's kind of sad that people don't know where things come from. Because me, I love history, you know, not just about martial arts, I love the history of everything, but then look at the shit that we're fed, you know. Like, obviously the victors write the history books, as they say, and it's the same with martial arts, you know, whichever. That's like sort of the buzz grappling art now. So it's all jiu-jitsu, you know, it's crazy.
We've seen massive changes over the past 30 years from most programs. Probably was started with jiu-jitsu programs that were self-defense based, a lot of striking. A lot of schools still sell jiu-jitsu as a self-defense product when there's absolutely zero stand-up game involved, no striking, nothing like that.
Those coaches have never been in a real fight in their life. I don't mean that. I mean proper fighting. You know, they've never been stood there shitting themselves when the shit is the fan and there's weapons out and there's good. They don't know what that's like. So would you go and would you send your loved ones to learn how to drive by somebody who's only drove around the car park? You know, being out on the main road in torrential rain. you definitely wouldn't. So I just think that for me is a pet hate. It's total bullshit. They're teaching them absolute shit. Wrapping your legs around someone underneath them on the floor, what a load of shit for self-defense. Imagine we're about to do self-defense now. I say, right, you can go outside in the car park, you can be underneath and guard or on top. There's no rules. Smash them, bite them, anything you want, rain elbow down. Who wants to be underneath? No one volunteering to go underneath. And also when you're on the floor outside, it's different to being on the mats, and when you're wearing your normal clothes, you're not warmed up. It could be slippery, there could be things there. People, there's so many variables, it's so different. And I've written an article many years ago in Martial Arts Illustrated, probably about 14 years ago, about this same problem, and the problems got bigger and bigger over time. And I created some instructionals, actually street effective grappling, and they went well. I wanted to help people realise, that it's not just about, rolling about on the floor, but that's self-defense industry as well. I think that's a strange thing, because again, it's just money, and people. I just think that a lot of the time, money's important. Yeah, we know that. You should be able to, every man's should be paid his worth and whatnot. But I think that with marketing and bullshit, and you can get some real gullible people wanting to learn self-defense and martial arts, and if people are, you get shoutings can really fleece them of a lot of money. Oh, you're doing well, here's a certificate, and giving them patting, oh yeah, if you've got trouble, and if they get trouble, they're going to get seriously fucking hurt, you know what I mean? Because they're ill-equipped. You get lads diving onto the back thinking that's a good place to be. It's crazy. It's crazy as far as I'm concerned.
What would you say, from your coaching, is the best systems to use for self-defense?
Well, no, it's, for me, like, the most violent people I've ever met in my life have never been martial artists. The most dangerous, violent people I've ever met are not martial artists. They don't train martial arts. So that's something to think about. Most sociopaths and most people who are walking around the landings, cat air landings in England, in the most dangerous prisons, they never did any martial arts in their life. So you need to think about that. You have to think about that. Who are these people that you're coming up against? Like, what is it you're training for? For me, best self-defense is to find a martial art that you really love, get involved in it, and spend all your time in the gym. Live a healthy life. Don't be going in pubs and clubs that's full of fucking maniacs. Keep your mouth shut. Don't go around causing trouble. That's good self-defense, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there's fucking dangerous people out there, you know what I mean? I've been involved in bits and bobs myself, I've been attacked by gangs with bats, ran over, hit in the head with an axe, shot at, people brandishing things, and that was obviously I ran security and whatnot, but a lot of that happened growing up actually when I was a teen, just by living in certain areas, and these people what were doing all that, they weren't martial artists, you know what I mean? So yeah, self-defense, it's a strange thing, isn't it? For me, awareness and avoidance, they're the most important things, awareness and avoidance. There's no need to be going around and putting yourself in those situations. Yeah. And parents, be careful when there's people saying, oh yeah, we'll bully-proof your child and all this, that and the other, because I've had kids coming here who have been bullied in the Jiu Jitsu school where they've been by kids who are better and stuff, so you've got to watch out for that. And then they're diving on the back and trying to do all types of crazy stuff for self-defense. It's crazy.
Yeah. So we've done all over this sort of where you came from, now you've got to catch wrestling. Where do you think catch wrestling is going to go now?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, I kind of like it as it is, to be honest. I kind of like it as it is because I think that if you want to do it, you have to really you have to put a bit of effort in. There's not catch wrestling schools like look out how far you travel the game.
7.5 hours.
And get it. I've been to, I don't know how many times I've been to the US countless times to train, to compete. You've got to travel, you've got to put in the work. And I think it'd be great actually. Another part of me thinks the idea if catch wrestling was everywhere and it was affordable and the people who knew how to coach it and you could go and train catch wrestling, that'd be great. And it'd put an end to all of that bullshit marketing that's getting people in the white suits or whatever colour suits and the stripes and all, this culture, whatever it is, where they all think that they can just strangle anybody and put them to sleep and the badass. I think you'd put an end to that. If they had like catch wrestling, they wouldn't have to go chasing after grades and paying crazy amounts of money for seminars, hoping that somebody's going to give them a stripe and all that. This is a problem in Jiu Jitsu, is this that what's the measuring stick? How do you know what's one belt to the other? What is it? If there's a white belt who's tapping out on brown belts, what does that mean? Every school has its own thing. I just say get rid of them belts for a start. Get rid of them. They're just holding up a bit of cloth.
Well, they were brought in really for the sport culture, weren't they? They weren't really anything.
I don't
the
know.
original coaching methods. Helio wore a blue belt, and his students wore a white belt.
But then they brought out black belts in like the 70s, didn't they?
Yeah.
But was that because nobody had given them a black
in
belt
America.
in judo? Is that why they didn't wear
Yeah,
black belts? Nobody actually graded them. None of them had attained the level of black belt in judo and Kano. Is that why?
Oh, I'm not sure if that's the case. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they brought it
It's
out.
odd, isn't it? Yeah. It's crazy, isn't it? It really is. And there's all types of things happening back then. You can look at the newspaper reports where there's challenge matches and people's losing matches. One where catch wrestling defeats Jiu Jitsu, and then 3 brothers wait outside the guy's works and smash him and get put on the man for smashing him in with weapons. This is all. So that's okay. That's how you live, and then that's what you are. But then suddenly you've got the next generation where they're all, we wear white gis, where it's like sort of like a religion. What the fuck? Like, it's if you're a bad motherfucker and you're living it like that's okay, but then don't go and. I think it's strange how when you think Jiu-Jitsu it attracted me, it was badass. They weren't invading each other's gyms and they're having it, and I was a young lad and I thought that was good. That's the culture around here. There's different gangs and they're fighting and they're trying to come and take your door and you're fighting. That's what kind of attracted me to it. And now it's sort of like all this, I don't know, what is this bullshit where they're all like talking, like all like, you know, what is it where it's all about becoming a better person and all this and that, and through Jiu-Jitsu, the Jiu-Jitsu lifestyle and all that, it just seems like bullshit to me. It just seems like bullshit. And there's these guys, there's these brothers, different brothers. Somebody that I know went off to train with them in the States, and they say, oh guys, it's okay to take drugs and drink, and it's okay, you go to a different city, you get the hotel, you get the hookers and have a good time, you go back, your students don't know about this. Fuck that. If you're going to do that, if you want to do that, you do what you want. I believe it. You do what you want, but don't go acting like you're not doing that. Like, just be yourself. I hate that. For me, like, it's like making money from, I don't know, going and getting a kilo of brown and knocking it out with something. It's, you make loads of money, but it's not right. I don't think it'll sit right in your heart. But these people don't give a fuck. You know, they can wear white suits and the nice belts and all that, but what the fuck? I'm not into all that. I'm not into all that. I just say, let's train, let's wrestle, forget about all that bullshit.
So it's now really, the culture is similar, I suppose, to when you were coming through, and certainly when our culture was coming through, where it was just blue belts. And you had to travel, you had to look for it, you had to find it. And I suppose that's what catch wrestling is now.
Yeah, I used to travel 180 miles to train with blue belts. Yeah, and then obviously I went off to Brazil, but they were good blue belts. I think them blue belts then would smash a lot of people what are wearing a black belt now. So that's a strange thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So get rid of the belts, it's a load of shit.
Yeah,
It's a
but
lot of
my
madness.
coach said that, you know, you wouldn't get anything on any of the blue
They could
belts.
fight,
Yeah.
you know, because they were like the ones who were like, they were the first ones to get graded. It meant something. Do you know what I mean? I had to win the Europeans white to get my blue. So that's the thing you had to do.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I've been out to Brazil. I trained hard, got smashed up and down every day. It was good. But yeah, but we catch, another thing we catch is people can go and pay a bit of money and get these certificates or whatever and make a few videos and they're an authority on catch, but they never actually went and competed in catch. You know, there's a lot of people who never competed. Don't compete. That's strange. One good thing about Jiu-Jitsu is everyone competes, you know, they'll get on the mat. No, in Jiu-Jitsu, anybody will have a roll with you. Anyone will roll with anyone. That's good. They will, you know, you go into school, anybody will have a roll, won't they? It's like, there's some great things. Jiu-Jitsu's got some great things, and that's one of them. And another thing, a lot of people do it, but a lot of people that were sort of like attract the catch, but they don't want to actually go on and do it. They don't want to be getting the face neck cranked and face barred and twisted one way, do you know what I mean? So for me, if you're going to learn catch wrestling, learn off somebody that's been there and done it, that's actually went out there and got on the mat and competed, won, lost, drew, and has trained other people, you know, not just somebody that's good at marketing. You have to watch out in every martial art. It seems to be the people who have the best sales pitch, you know, that's where everybody goes. Yeah. And you got to look through that, haven't you? Fuck all that. It's a lot of madness. There's good people dotted about all over, honestly. There's good people. I remember we got Jack Mountford here. What a legend that guy is. I think he was in his 70s, and I don't know how old he is now, but we were competing at the time in catch and doing all right, and he beat us all in fitness. What a man. He was like the creator of ASW, and he'd also medalled in the Worlds for Judo and the Judo Masters. And he's created some great guys like Darren Morris and all those guys over in the Northwest. Obviously, some great guys have come through. Roy Wood, you know, I've been to the Snake Pit and competed for them for a couple of years myself. And another place where you're going to get some good guys. Ian Jones also, who was part of that Doncaster Jiu Jitsu I was speaking about. He was part of the Snake Pit, still is, and he's went out competing and he's training people. These people dotted about, you know what I mean? It's but a lot of them are just like the brothers that I said, just kind of secretive, and it's a funny thing, Catch. There's no belts, there's no gradings. Although they are doing some places, they're giving out some sort of levels, which is okay because it means that people are going and putting the work in and learning Catch. But I remember my wife said to me a few weeks ago, actually said the problem is with Catch, she said the only reward is getting out of a session unscathed, getting out of a session and not being injured. She said to me, that's the only reward that you have. She's like, what you're doing when we have proper classes where we're getting to it. She said, that's the only reward. And I thought, it probably is, but that's good. I like that. There's something good about that. You know, there's something good about that.
Brilliant. Right, Chris, thank you very much. Really appreciate you sitting down. We appreciate the training. It's been brilliant.
Yeah, it's great to have you. You've both done incredibly well and you asked great questions.
Thank you.
It's a blessing to have you on the mat. Thanks for wanting to chat.
Thanks so much. Really hope to
I wanted to be more controversial, but I hope that was okay.
I think you got that. Thank you, mate.
God bless you, mate.
Cheers, buddy.